Good evening, code fans. This is the Code Whisperer here. Today we're going to code something I've wanted done for a while. It's not so glamorous, it's not a weekend with Batman per se, but we're basically going to implement the Redux library in CodePen today for fun. Hopefully we'll learn a lot about its inner workings and also a lot about how code works. So if you don't know what Redux is, let's look it up here. GitHub Redux. So Redux is this big ass library that you use to manage your state in your React and your Angular apps. And it's got two basic functions, get state and dispatch, but we'll deal with that when we're coding it. So this is Redux. As you can see, it's a big deal. Hence, re-implementing it for fun is not a waste of time, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's get started. So let's start by, in our JavaScript here, let's make this nice and big because we need lots of room for JavaScript. We will create a new const called Redux. So Redux has many functions. We'll try to get as many of them as possible. The first one is create store. This is a really important function. So when you call create store, you get an instance of your Redux store, and your Redux store is what you use to manage the state of your application. So we'll call create store, and all create store will do is return a new store, and now we'll define a class for our store. Const store equals that. And we've got a class. So here in our store class, our store object is going to have two methods, get state. Let's make these traditional functions with no arrows, and dispatch. And let's actually add this, make this a return style statement, because you just know we're going to have more work to do on this one. So if we give it a shot, let's see, how do I want to do this? I want to use our console for this. Console could work. Yeah, it looks like we have plenty of room for all. So let's test our code out. We'll say let store equals redux.create store, and then we'll console log our store. And it looks like our syntax here isn't quite right. I want to put these in little round brackets so it knows just to return that object. My CodePen does not want to work. What's wrong? Does it not like some of this syntax that I used? Ah, yes, there shouldn't be a thingy there, though I don't know what the big deal would really be about that. That's weird. Let's just refresh it maybe. All right, so now it's working again. It says store is not a constructor, which is fine. I'll just get rid of the new here to make it plain nice. And we've got our store with get state and dispatch. Cool. So the store takes two initial arguments, reducer and initial state. Initial state, it's simple enough as just saying initial state equals an empty object. So if it's not provided, then your initial state is by default just an object with no properties. And for here, for create store, we'll just have our arguments that are passed in, and we'll send those over to store. So whatever you call on create store will be passed to the store initialization. And now for the getState method, you can just have it return the initial state. Or do you want to have it, because we're going to be changing it, we're going to be updating it, it won't be called initial state. You know what, let's kind of cheat and just call this variable state instead of initial state. That looks good. Now if we console.log store.getState, we get an empty object. And if we call create store with a reducer, let's just put in an identity reducer for now, and a state, there's our default state. That's a weird sort of sound. A little apocalyptic, but that's okay. So now let's define a reducer that we're going to use in our Redux store. So a reducer is a function which takes a state and an action and then returns a new state, or the same state if nothing's changed. Const reducer equals boom. So it has two arguments, state and action. So the way you write a reducer is you do a bunch of checks for the action type, and then if they match, you return a different state, and if none of them do, you just return the original state. So we'll put here at the bottom, return state. We'll say if action.type equals set foo, we'll say state equals ... state, comma, foo is action.value. So what we're doing here is this syntax with the 3 dots is the copying syntax. So when you do that ... you're creating a new object. And this is important because in Redux, you can't mutate the original state because you have to be able to do a state equality check. In other words, it's faster to compare 2 different objects than 2 of the same object in different states. So we have a reducer, so let's put our reducer here in create store. So now what we want is if we call store.dispatch and we make an action of type set foo and of value equals zug, and then we log the state again, ideally we're going to want a different value, and also we're going to want to save the original state. So let's do that. Const orig state equals bam, and we want to log it. And we're also going to log at the end what the original state is, because we want to be able to prove that we're not mutating the object that's changed. So let's clear this. And let's actually just make a button here. Button go on click equals store test. And we'll say window.store test equals, and we'll just put all this code here that's not actually defining the Redux store all in our store test. So if we press the go button, we get our log. So everything's working there. Now what we want here is we're seeing here the first state, the state is still bar. We want it so that the thing changes to Zug when we define our thing. Now why isn't that happening? As you may notice, that's because dispatch here still doesn't have any code. So when we dispatch an action, basically all we're doing is alerting all the reducers about it. If we were implementing middleware, we'd also alert the middleware here. But basically, when you call dispatch, it's an action. And as we know, reducers take a state and the action. So we can just call reducer on state and action, and that will equal our new state. In this case, all we have to do is say state equals reducer state action, and it will replace our state with a new reference without actually mutating it. So now if we press go, all right, cool. That's good. Let's just actually clear this and do it again so we can clearly see what happens. So our original state is foo bar. When we dispatch the action set foo, it changes to foo zug. But if we look at our original object, it's still foo bar because we used this replacement syntax. Wow, folks, I think we just implemented Redux. That was fast and easy. If I had known it was that easy, I would have gotten to 30,000 stars myself. So what should we do now, my Cody friends? Should we build an application around our Redux state? Or should we implement some additional Redux features like combine reducers? Let me think. Let's build a simple application around our Redux app. Now, Redux has a lot of additional convenience features, like if you pass a reducer that returns undefined, it will alert you, and various other conveniences. But basically, we just implemented the whole thing. That's nuts. So let's build an application. It'll be a typical kind of Redux application where we might have, what kind of application? I wasn't really planning on building an application. I don't have any ideas. Yeah, I guess since it's Halloween, we'll just have a list of spooky things. It's almost Halloween when I'm making this. And then we'll have a button that appends more spooky things to the list. So we'll say div ID equals spooky things. And of course, you could use React for this kind of view generation. I think that's great, but we're just trying to reduce the complexity here. So we're just writing it in HTML and using just basic templating and such. So we'll make a function called render, which is also kind of a React sort of element. And the thing we're going to want to render is the state of the application. So we'll say const state equals store.getState. And we'll call render here at the bottom. And so in our render function, we're going to want to do a few things. And store is not defined because store test is in this little closure. So we'll make store out here. And let's update our state that we're creating with the store to have an array of things. Spooky things is an array, and we'll just put some haunted, scary stuff in there. Candy corn, costumes, Bride of Frankenstein, Drac. So we'll make our list of spooky things, and we'll say document.getElement by ID, spooky things, .inner HTML equals our state.spookythings.map, and this works a lot like JSX. We just have to have a little template string in there, thing, and we'll just map that to an HTML element. Div thing $. Nice. And then of course we have to put a .join on this to join it all and make it contiguous. Let's just update our thing so it's more clear what's going on. And what we'll do is we'll make kind of update it so that we can update our list with more additional spooky things. And shall we have an input as well? I feel like that would be appropriate. ID equals a thing. Fix this typo. So let's rename this method add thing, and we don't need store test anymore, so we're just gonna get rid of it, or we'll just call it blanket out in case someone after the fact wants to see what's happening. Say window.add thing equals bam, and we'll just put a log here for now to make sure it's working. Adding a thing, and we'll figure out what that thing is because we'll get document.getElement by ID a thing dot value. Say const val equals, and then we'll just log that value to make sure that it's all looking good. Can't read value of null. Why would it say that? Great, so now it's working. Adding a thing, and it's just saying what we're typing in when we add a thing. Looking good, looking good. So now when we have a thing, we know it's working. We want to update our Redux state to fix that. So let's get rid of this foo here in the create store. And for a reducer, we'll just get rid of this whole block and make a new block. We'll say if action.type equals add thing, we'll say, now when you have an array inside an object, you can't mutate either of them. So you kind of have to copy it twice like this. We say const new things equals state dot things, and actually we want to put it in this array duplicating syntax. So if we just say dot 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 state dot things, new things is going to be a direct copy of state dot things. But we want to add the thing as well. So at the end of the list, we'll add the action dot value. We'll just make it value. Const new things, that's looking good. And now we want to make a new state by composing it with the new things. Const new state equals dot 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 state, and then things is new things. Now we haven't mutated either the array or the object, and we can return the new state. So this is still working. When you add a thing, you're going to call store.dispatch. The type's going to be add thing. And the value's going to be the val that was entered in the box. And then because we are good coders, at the end of this block, we're going to say document.getElement.id a thing.value equals empty. So the list clears as a user would expect it to. And then at the end of add thing, we'll just log the state of the store. We'll see if it changed. Store.getState. Something spooky, mommy. State.things is not iterable. And of course it isn't, because there is no state.things. There's state.spooky things. So let's change this. Spooky things. We're professionals. We label our arrays what they are. Boo. And great. So we can see the state of our store has been updated, so now boo is last on the list of spooky things. Since our view is just a reflection of what our state is, believe it or not, to update our page, all we have to do is call render here at the end of store.addThing. And I can add some spooky stuff, haunted. And it works. We didn't quite get our form right because pressing enter on this doesn't really do what we want. Say input ID on submit equals add thing. Will that work? I don't think it's gonna work. We're gonna try it. Puck. Like, we could put it in a form or whatever to get it to work. So I guess we'll do that. You just want people to press enter to close that. So put that in a form. And then we'll put the on submit tag on the form. Don't need this on click anymore. Will that work now? It does, but it restarts the page. Can we return false from add a thing? No, still refreshes the page. E, can we call e.prevent default? I don't think that's gonna work. JavaScript form submit, no refresh. What is going on here? Maybe we put the submit on the button. No, now there's nothing's changing. Blah. On click. And we just get rid of this e.prevent default. There's no e is going to be passed here. And say form on submit equals return false. Is that going to work? That doesn't even close to look right. Oh, great, it worked. Okay, so you have to put this on submit, return false, right here in the HTML. Don't ask why, just love the code. And we'll clean this all up. And yeah, basically we're done. We implemented Redux and we built a spooky application around it. Unlike most of our jaunts, this is actually pretty useful since Redux is a library that's used by a lot of important people. Now, if you want to learn more about Redux, I recommend you check out my course on Pluralsight, which is hours and hours of me talking about Redux. Let's have a look. So here in this course that I teach, we learn all about Redux in this long series of videos, which is just totally cool. We're gonna get React Redux going in there, a bit of Redux stunk. So that's good. And if you check out the link below, you can get a free trial on Pluralsight. So check out that link and go to Pluralsight to watch my course on Advanced Redux. And that's it. That's our app. I encourage you to maybe style it up, add some bats or something to our spooky app, and I will see you tomorrow.